I never thought I'd torch my own legacy just to watch my family burn with it, but that's exactly what I did on the night the rain hammered Seattle like God's own gavel. My sister, Lydia, had always been the golden child, the one who smiled through tears and turned every fuck-up into a redemption arc. But when she slid that forged shareholder agreement across the boardroom table, claiming 70% of Aurora Innovations as her birthright, I realized the fairy tale was rotten to the core. And me? I was the idiot who built the castle, brick by bloody brick, only to hand her the matches. It started 6 months ago, on a drizzly Tuesday in my corner office overlooking Puget Sound. I'd poured everything into Aurora Innovations, my MIT dropout dreams, 3 years of ramen-fueled coding marathons, and every last dime from the family trust my parents swore was just a loan. We specialized in AI-driven supply chain software, nothing flashy like self-driving cars, but the kind of quiet revolution that kept Amazon's warehouses humming without a hitch. By 32, I'd turned a garage startup into a $50 million valuation, with venture capitalists circling like sharks at a chum line. Lydia, my younger sister by 5 years, had crashed on my couch more times than I could count, mooching off my success while chasing her acting career in LA that never quite materialized. Our parents, retired teachers from Spokane, doted on her like she was the second coming, always whispering about how I was too driven while Lydia was the heart of the family. That Tuesday, Dad called an emergency family meeting. Mom baked her famous apple pie, cloves and cinnamon, the scent that used to mean safety, and I showed up thinking it was about Dad's prostate scare. Instead, they unveiled the bomb. Lydia was now majority shareholder. "It's only fair, Aurora," Mom said, her voice quivering like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. "You built this on family money. Lydia's had a rough go, divorce, that lawsuit in California. She needs stability." Dad nodded, avoiding my eyes, as he pushed the papers forward. Signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. Dates backdated to the trust disbursement. 70% to Lydia, 20 to me, 10 split between Mom and Dad. My company. My blood, sweat, and skipped periods from 80-hour weeks. I laughed at first, nerves, I guess, because it had to be a prank. Lydia, perched on the edge of my desk in her knockoff Chanel, batted her lashes. "Sis, don't be dramatic. We're family. I'll keep you on as CEO. Think of it as elevation." Elevation? I'd coded the algorithms that predicted Black Friday rushes before anyone else. I'd turned down Silicon Valley headhunters to keep it local, hiring laid-off Boeing workers when the pandemic hit. And now this? Forgery so blatant it screamed amateur hour. But when I demanded the originals, Dad's face crumpled. "It's done, honey. The lawyers say it's ironclad." That night, alone in my Queen and Victorian, I paced the creaky floors until dawn, the sounds foghorn mocking me like a bad country song. Betrayal isn't a word. It's a gut punch that leaves you heaving. But this was surgical, a blade twisted by the people who were supposed to have my back. I thought of all the times I'd covered for Lydia. The shoplifting bust in high school that I confessed to, taking the community service hit, the college tuition she blew on coke-fueled parties that I repaid from my first internship check. Secrets buried so deep they'd fossilized. And for what? So she could play the victim while I played the mule. By morning, I was done being the good daughter. I needed proof, not tears. That's when I called Harlan Voss, the forensic accountant who'd made headlines dismantling Enron light scandals in the 90s. "Discretion is my middle name," he rasped over the phone, voice like gravel from too many Marlboros. We met in a dive bar off Pike Place. Cliché, sure, but walls have ears in tech. Harlan was pushing 70, with a comb-over that defied gravity and eyes that dissected balance sheets like a hawk on a field mouse. "Forged docs? Family? Honey, that's Shakespeare with spreadsheets." I slid him a $10,000 retainer and the file. "Make it hurt." Harlan's first report landed a week later, via encrypted drive. The signatures were photoshops, timestamps manipulated with freeware any intern could Google. But the real venom? The trust fund. Turns out, Mom and Dad hadn't just loaned me the seed money. They'd embezzled it from the Spoken School District's retirement fund. Lydia's idea, of course. She'd sweet-talked them during her down phase post-divorce, spinning tales of how my selfish ambition was draining the family dry. The forgery was her coup de grace, backdating investments to claim equity. But Harlan dug deeper, unearthing Lydia's California lawsuit. Not a slip and fall, but a fraud rap. She'd posed as a venture scout, siphoning $200,000 from startups with promises of funding that never came. I'd known whispers, but the cover-up? That was on me. 10 years ago, when the feds came knocking, I'd vouched for her, said it was a misunderstanding, even wired her bail from my savings. Family sticks, I'd told the DA, choking on the lie. They dropped charges for lack of evidence, but the stink clung. And now, she was weaponizing my loyalty against me. I confronted them at the family cabin up in the Cascades, neutral ground, or so I thought. Snow dusted the evergreens like powdered sugar on a corpse, and the lake was a black mirror reflecting my rage. Lydia arrived first, all performative hugs and, let's talk this out, like sisters. Mom and Dad trailed in, bearing casseroles like peace offerings. We sat around the stone fireplace, flames crackling like suppressed gunfire. You stole from kids' futures, I said, voice steady as I tossed Harlan's printouts into the hearth. Pages curled, ink bleeding like accusations. Dad stammered, "It was a loan, Aurora." "A loan from orphans and teachers?" I snapped. Mom wept, mascara rivers down her cheeks. "Lydia needed us. You were always so independent." Independent. Code for ungrateful. Lydia leaned forward, eyes wide with that Oscar bait innocence. "Aurora, you're twisting this. I was protecting the company from you. Your burnout, those all-nighters. I saw the emails, you're popping Adderall like candy. I did this for us." Lies layered on lies. She'd hacked my inbox months ago, twisting my prescriptions into instability for the board. But her flip? Pure theater. 1 minute victim, the next viper. That's when the tension snapped. I revealed the deeper cut. Lydia's fraud wasn't ancient history. Harlan's trails led to shell companies laundering her ill-gotten gains back into our family pot, buying Mom's dream kitchen remodel, Dad's golf trips to Pebble Beach. "You're all complicit," I said, standing as the fire popped embers onto the rug. Lydia lunged, not violent, but a grab for the remaining files, her nails raking my wrist like she owned my skin. "You bitch," she hissed, mask slipping. "You think you're clean? That DUI you buried in college?" My connections made it vanish. The room froze. My secret, the one I'd buried under NDAs and a fat lawyer fee after wrapping my Civic around a pole, high on cheap wine and rejection from my first VC pitch. She'd known. Used it as leverage. Family my ass. We drove back in silence, the Volvo's heater blasting against the chill that had nothing to do with weather. I replayed it all, the betrayals stacking like Jenga blocks, each pull threatening collapse. But revenge isn't a light switch, it's a slow fuse, and mine was lit. Back in Seattle, I played the long game. Kept Lydia on as interim CEO while I ghosted through meetings, nodding like a bobblehead. Whispers spread, investors pulling back, clients citing leadership flux. Harlan fed me ammo, tax evasions, insider trades that skirted SEC lines. Lydia, sensing the noose, started flipping again, charm offensives with the board, painting me as the disgruntled founder. She even leaked a concerned sibling op-ed to TechCrunch, anonymized but reeking of her pros. Family businesses thrive on trust, not tyranny. The boardroom showdown brewed for weeks, tension thick as Seattle fog. I prepped like a prizefighter. Dossiers on every exec, projections showing Lydia's vision, tanking stock by 40%. But the real haymaker? I hired a PI, ex-Fed, the kind who thrives on gray areas. He uncovered Lydia's latest scheme, shopping Aurora Innovations to a Chinese conglomerate, backroom deals with NDAs thicker than her conscience. Treasonous in tech circles, where IP theft is the ultimate sin. "She's selling the farm," the PI grunted over IPAs at Elliott Bay Book Company. "Your farm?" Climax hit on a storm-lashed Thursday, the kind where thunder rolls in from the Olympics like divine commentary. The boardroom, floor-to-ceiling glass smeared with rain, city lights blurring into neon halos. 14 suits, coffee breath, and Rolex ticks. Lydia at the head, preening in a power suit that screamed, "I belong here." Mom and Dad in the back, ghosts in cardigans. I entered last, Harlan at my elbow, like a grizzled consigliera. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, voice echoing off the acoustics panels, "before we vote on the acquisition, let's talk truth." Slides clicked, forgeries highlighted in red, embezzlement trails looping like nooses. Gasps rippled, old money venture guy choking on his latte. Lydia's face drained to chalk. "This is libel," she shrieked, slamming a fist that scattered pens. But I wasn't done. "And this," I said, cueing the final deck, "is your sister's rap sheet. Fraud. Extortion. The very crimes she pinned on me to steal your trust." The board erupted, alliances fracturing like fault lines. One exec, a black woman who'd clawed her way from intern to partner, shot Lydia a look that said, "Not today." Another, the grizzled VC, muttered, "Family drama's one thing, but this? It's cancer." Lydia flipped then, hard, tears streaming, turning on Mom and Dad. "You promised. You said it'd be clean." Betrayal boomeranged, her scheming unraveling in real time. Mom sobbed, "We did it for you, baby, for all of us." Dad just stared at his shoes, the man who'd taught me integrity now a co-conspirator in ruin. The vote. Cancelled. Shares clawed back via emergency injunction. But the split gutted me. Half the board wanted Lydia prosecuted, the other half urged reconciliation for the company's sake. Me? I watched it all, heart pounding like a bass drop at a grunge revival. Who was the villain? The forger? The enabler? Or the daughter who'd burn it all for justice? In the end, I made the call that split souls. As the rain eased to drizzle, I greenlit Harlan's nuclear option, leaked the files to the press, anonymized but devastating. By dawn, headlines screamed from Wired to the Seattle Times. Tech darlings, family fraud, forged empire crumbles. Stock plummeted 60%, clients bolted, but Lydia? Ruined. Blackballed from every boardroom west of the Mississippi. Mom and Dad retreated to Spokane, whispers of divorce in the wind. Lydia vanished to some ashram in Big Sur, posting vague Instagram koans about forgiveness. Me? I sold the remnants, pocketed enough for a quiet life in Portland, brewing IPAs and mentoring startups from a food truck. Victory tasted like ash, though. That final twist? The PI's last report slipped under my door like contraband. Lydia hadn't just covered my DUI. She'd orchestrated it. A jealous spike in my drink at that VC party. Payback for outshining her in Dad's eyes. Proof? A blurry security cam still, her silhouette in the shadows. I held the flash drive, thumb hovering over delete. Expose her fully. Drag us all into the abyss? Or let the wound scar? Family be damned? I chose the scar. But as I stare at the sound now, waves lapping like unanswered questions, I wonder, was mercy the real revenge, or just another betrayal? You tell me. The months after the leak blurred into a haze of depositions and death threats, mostly from Lydia's rabid LA friends, the kind who DM'd me Bible verses twisted into curses. "Thou shalt not covet thy sister's throne," one read, attached to a Photoshop of me as Judas with a noose. I laughed it off in therapy. Mandatory, courtesy of the settlement, but inside, it festered. Revenge isn't a sprint. It's a marathon through your own bullshit, and mine was paved with regrets. I'd saved Aurora Innovations from total collapse, sure, but at what cost? The company I loved, gutted like a salmon on Pike Place. And family? That word now tasted like battery acid. I relocated to a loft in Capitol Hill, the kind with exposed brick and views of the Space Needle that mocked my fall. No more Queen Bee, just Aurora Hale, ex-founder, nursing a craft beer habit and freelance gigs auditing startups for ethical blind spots. Harlan became an unlikely lifeline, weekly check-ins at his Rainier Valley bungalow, where he'd brew Folgers strong enough to strip paint and dissect my choices like autopsy slides. "You didn't just win, kid," he'd say, puffing a cigarillo that violated every city ordinance. "You atomized them. But atoms? They recombine." Prophetic, that old bastard. Lydia resurfaced first, 6 weeks post-scandal. A certified letter, postmarked from Carmel. "Dear sis, the desert clears the mind. I've renounced it all, material ties, grudges included. Join me for solstice? Love, L." Renounced. As if fraud were a bad perm. I burned it in my sink, watching flames dance on vellum like a microcosm of our implosion. But curiosity's a bitch, and mine nipped at heels. I Googled her. Sparse posts from a wellness retreat, all downward dogs and quinoa bowls. Victim arc reloaded. Healing from betrayal's shadow. Shadow? She was the goddamned eclipse. Mom called next, voice a whisper from Spokane's rotary phone era. "Aurora, honey? Your father's not well. Prostate, stage 3 now. The big C, irony's middle finger. He wants to see you. Before." I drove east that weekend, I-90 a ribbon of regret under iron-gray skies. The old Victorian sagged like Dad's shoulders, porch swing creaking in the wind off the river. Mom met me at the door, thinner than her apple pies, eyes hollowed by chemo runs and canceled bridge nights. Dad was in the den, hooked to an oxygen tank that hissed like accusations. "Didn't mean for it to go this far," he wheezed, hand trembling on mine. "Lydia. She spun us. Said you were cutting us out. The trust was empty, Ori. We panicked." Panicked. The word hung, inadequate as a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I wanted to scream about the embezzlement, the forgeries, the way they'd pawned my dreams for her delusions. But looking at him, skin jaundiced under the lamp's glow, I swallowed it. "Why me, Dad? Why not fight fair?" He coughed, a rattle that echoed my breaking. "You were always the strong one. Thought Lydia needed saving. Like I failed her after the divorce." Flashback City. Mark, her ex, the Wall Street wolf who traded her for a junior analyst. Lydia's spiral, booze, bad men, that fraud gig as reinvention. I'd pulled her from the ledge then, literally, after a rooftop party where she'd eyed the drop like an exit sign. Covered the tracks, again. Family tax unpaid. We talked till dusk, ghosts of Thanksgivings past flickering in the hearth. Mom served pot roast, overcooked and apologetic. "No Lydia. She's in California, finding herself." Finding herself. I left with a hug that felt like goodbye, the drive back a blur of wheat fields and what-ifs. Harlan was waiting, parked outside my loft like a bloodhound. "Forgive M?" he asked, no judgment, just facts. "Or fuel the fire?" I didn't answer, but the fuse reignited that night, scrolling Lydia's feeds. A new post, her at a glitzy fundraiser in Monterey, arm in arm with a Silver Fox philanthropist. Caption: "Grateful for second chances. Redemption." The dress? One I'd bought her for her 30th, now draped over her like stolen valor. Digging commenced. Not Harlan this time. Too clean. I went rogue, old school. Burner apps, deep web forums where ex-cons swap war stories. Turns out Lydia's renouncement was a rebrand. The philanthropist? A front for a crypto scam, same playbook as her California hustle, Ponzi promises wrapped in ESG buzzwords. She'd funneled scandal leftovers into it, laundering through wellness NFTs, eco-enlightenment tokens, the pitch read, selling salvation to suckers. And the kicker? Seed investors included Mom and Dad's retirement nest, rebuilt on my settlement crumbs. She'd flipped again, preying on their guilt like a vampire on plasma. Rage boiled, American as apple pie a la mode with arsenic. I could have gone nuclear, FBI tip line anonymous. But no. This needed intimacy, the kind that scars souls. I booked a flight to Monterey, red-eye from Seattle to Tacoma, landing in fog that clung like regret. The retreat was a sprawl of adobe casitas on cliffs overlooking the Pacific, wind chimes, tinkling lies. Lydia greeted me at sunset yoga, mid-warrior pose, lithe, luminous, a far cry from the couch surfer I'd bailed out. "Aurora," she trilled, unrolling her mat with a grace that screamed rehearsal. We walked the labyrinth garden, waves crashing below like pent-up fury. "I've changed," she said, eyes dewy. "Therapy, ayahuasca. I see now my shadows, your light. Forgive me." Forgive. The word dangled, bait on a hook. I played along, sipping her turmeric latte, nodding through confessions that skimmed the surface. The company. I was scared, sis, of being nothing. Nothing. While I'd built empires, she'd chase spotlights that flickered out. But as dusk deepened, I dropped the bomb. Screenshots of her crypto ledgers, timestamps matching Mom's wire transfers. Her face, oh, the flip. From serene to serpentine in a heartbeat. "You spied? After everything?" Venom dripped, mask molten. "I did it for them, for us. Your precious ethics would have bankrupted Dad's care. Hypocrite. Hypocrite." It landed like a slap, because damn if it didn't echo. My own shadows. The Adderall scripts I'd fudged for deadlines, the competitor I'd undercut with whispers that bordered on sabotage. Was I any better? The garden spun, salt air thick with salter truths. She lunged verbally then, spilling the real rot. "That do I? Not jealousy. Protection. You were spiraling, VC rejection, pills. I spiked it to force a wake-up. And it worked, didn't it? You sobered, built Aurora. Protection. My near-death as her twisted therapy. The security still burned in my mind, her silhouette, not malice, but mercy? Debate fodder for shrinks and sinners. We parted at midnight, her in tears, me in turmoil. Back in Seattle, the call came, Dad's gone. Quiet, in his sleep, Mom murmuring hymns. Funeral was Methodist minimal, hymns, ham sandwiches, hollow condolences. Lydia showed, veiled in black silk, playing the grieving daughter to perfection. Whispers followed. Poor girl. Lost her father after all that mess. Mess. Our mess. At the graveside, under Spokane's relentless drizzle, she squeezed my hand. Truce. I nodded, but inside, the fuse hissed louder. Harlan met me post-burial, at a diner off the interstate, greasy spoons and grace. "What's the play?" he asked, forking pie like prophecy. I stared at the jukebox, Patsy Cline crooning loss. End it. Not death. Too final. Too un-American. Ruin refined. I fed the crypto docs to a journalist pal at ProPublica, timing it for Dad's obituary bump. Family Fraud 2.0. Wellness Guru's Ponzi Paradise. It dropped midweek, viral in hours. Tweets from VCs I'd once wooed. Memes of Lydia as a crystal ball Bernie Madoff. Her retreat shuttered overnight. Investors suing. The Silver Fox ghosting to Geneva. Lydia's final flip came via voicemail, voice cracked like canyon rock. "You killed us, Aurora." Mom's catatonic. "I hope your justice keeps you warm." It didn't. Nights blurred into bourbon and bad dreams, the loft echoing with absences. But the twist? Harlan's parting gift, a manila envelope postmarked anonymous. Bank records showing I'd unknowingly funneled settlement cash into Lydia's schemes via a family foundation Mom set up. Complicit. Me. The strong one, suckered again. Winter clamped Seattle like a vice, holidays a farce of string lights and solitude. I volunteered at a women's shelter up in Ballard, irony's gift, teaching coding to survivors who coded their escapes. Build something unbreakable, I'd say, fingers flying over keyboards while my own foundations cracked. Mom sold the Victorian, downsizing to a condo that smelled of mothballs and morphine. Our calls were scripts, weather reports, recipes, silences heavy as lead. Lydia? Radio static. Whispers said she'd bolted to Vancouver, waitressing in a dive that served poutine to pity partiers. Or was it Mexico, reinventing as a yoga nomad? Urban legends, all. The real unraveling hit in February, Valentine's snowstorm burying the city in whiteout whispers. Harlan rang urgent. Your sister's lawyered up. Civil suit, defamation, emotional distress. Claims you fabricated the leaks. Fabricated. As if my life were fanfic. We met in his bungalow, blizzard howling outside like banshees at bay. Files sprawled. Her attorney's brief, a shark from Perkins Qua with billables that bought islands. She's flipping the narrative, Harlan growled, circling clauses like prey. You as the vengeful harpy, her as the reformed prodigal. Prodigal. Biblical bullshit. But the evidence? Thin. My anonymous tips, her paper trail self-incriminating. Still, the optics. Family feud in court, tabloid fodder for the Me Too crowd who dubbed me the patriarchal punchbag. I could have settled. Hush money for harmony. Mom begged it over FaceTime, her face a scrimshaw of sorrow. Let it die, Aurora. For your father.
D.
The word echoed Dad's last breath, oxygen hissing finality. But surrender? That was Lydia's game, not mine. No, I told Harlan. We fight dirty. Enter phase 2 of Payback, the memoir. Not some tell-all screed, too tacky, too Trumpian. A founder's guide, ghost-ridden with a PNW scribe who'd penned Substack hits on corporate karma. Chapters wove my story. The build, the betrayal, the burn. No names at first, the prodigy, the enablers, but footnotes linked to public records, Harlan's audits anonymized as expert testimony. It dropped via Kindle Direct for $4.99, marketed to tech bros and betrayed biz owners. Reviews poured, gripping as Succession, gutting as Glass Onion. Sales spiked, podcasts beckoned, Lex Friedman grilling me on familial firewalls. Lydia struck back mid-tour, suing for real this time. Presser in LA, her beside the shark, tear-streaked and tailored. My sister's lies destroyed our family, she sobbed to TMZ mics. I forgive her, but justice? That's for the courts. Forgive. Again with the forgiveness, like it was currency she minted. Socials exploded, justice for Lydia trending, blue-check influencers decrying toxic feminism in boardrooms. Split City, half hailed me as whistleblower queen, the other as sibling slayer. Protests even. A dozen outside my loft, signs scrawling blood thicker than code. I watched from the fire escape, snow melting to slush under street lamps, heart a drum solo in doubt. The deposition was a circus, downtown high-rise, fluorescents buzzing like flies on roadkill. Lydia across the table, composed in cream linen, lawyer flanking like a Praetorian. Questions flew. Did you ever forge documents? Her, no. Aurora projected her paranoia. Lies layered, but her eyes, twitchy, telling tales. My turn. Ever spike my drink? Silence, then deflection. That's absurd. I saved you from yourself.
Saved.
The word weaponized, turning my trauma to her trophy. Harlan, in the gallery, shot me a nod, his ace up sleeve. Midway, recess. Her shark calls a sidebar, whispers frantic. Break? She'd folded. Terms. Drop suit, public apology, restitution to the school district. In exchange? Silence on the DUI therapy. We inked it in a conference room that reeked of stale ambition, pens scratching like claws on chalkboard. Lydia's hand shook on the dotted line, our eyes locking, mirrors of mutual mutilation. Why? She whispered post-signing, alone in the hall, cityscape sprawling indifferent below. You could have let me drown in Big Sur.
Drown.
Poetic, from the poet of Poison. Because family drowns together, I said, echoing her old line. Or was it mine? Blur of origins. Post-settlement, the memoir soared, bestseller in business, Oprah's book club whisper. Royalties rebuilt, a cabin in the Olympics, quiet as confessionals. Mom visited once, thawing over esmores by the wood stove. Proud of you, she murmured, first time in decades.
Proud.
It landed soft, a balm on burns. Lydia? Last I heard, she's in therapy for real, group circles in Portland, spilling to strangers what she couldn't to kin. We text holidays. Emojis, not essays. Truce tenuous as tissue. But the twist that haunts? That flash drive from the PI, the DUI spike cam. I never deleted it. Locked in a safe deposit box in Bellevue, gathering digital dust. One night, buzzed on Pinot from Walla Walla, I almost mailed it to her, to the press, to oblivion. Instead, I forwarded a copy to Harlan. "Burn it," I wrote. He did. Ashes in his garden rose bed. Mercy or madness? Readers debate in reviews. Aurora's the hero we deserve. Flawed, fierce. Nah, she's the villain in denial, torching bridges for clicks. Split as promised. No one's clean in this American Gothic. Betrayers, betrayed, all shades of gray. Now, spring thaws the sound, cherry blossoms bombing like confetti on concrete. I walk the market daily, fishmongers hawking salmon, tourists snapping the needle. Life rebuilds, brick by resilient brick. But in quiet hours, staring at waves that give nothing back, I wonder, if revenge is a dish best cold, why does it leave you starving? Maybe that's the point. Or maybe it's just the hook for the next chapter. You decide.